Yes, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to Stock Expo for the invitation and also the opportunity to speak here today. So, what I'll do is that I'll try to give a wider perspectives about the drivers that we see on sustainability and environmental and social and governance matters that is driving our strategy and thinking. So that has been the topic of my talk today. So one of the key drivers for us has been the understanding that we have seen verified through the IPCC reports coming out of the climate panel. We see the clear correlation between the human activity and the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere and the temperature rise. And that leads to climate change. And we believe that climate change is one of the key challenges for people, for business, and for societies. And that is also driving us, and it's driving the way we are working with our industry and with our business and with our strategy and with our strategic priorities. So that is key to what we are doing, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. So let me come back to this one. So Odfjell, for those of you who don't know Odfjell, we are a shipping and terminals company. We are one of the major, the biggest chemical tank operators in the world. We operate about 100 of these vessels, very complex chemical tankers that are able to transport anything liquid. These vessels, they transport some of the most hazardous liquids created by people, and we transport them through some of the most fragile environments in the world, and that means something to us. That means something about the responsibility that we have for the people on board and also for the environment where we operate. And that's one of the key drivers on the focus of sustainability for Odfjell. We also have terminals. We are jointly own 5 terminals around the world, and with a total storage of 1.3 million cubes. We store chemicals close to where people are living and close to societies, and that also means something for the responsibility that we feel every day. So this is some of our terminals. This is our terminal in Houston, and the strategy for us with regards to our terminals going forward, we want to make sure that we take an advantage of the position that we have within our shipping industry and connect that into the total value chain to see where we can find synergies with our operations on shipping. And we want to operate in the chemical tanker hubs in the world. And ideally, we would want to increase our terminals into about more than 1/3 of our business. And that means that we will continue growing on terminals. So the shipping industry represents today about 90% of the total of the value of the goods that are transported through the world. 90% of whatever you're having has been transported on a ship somewhere, and it has been transported from a terminal through a ship onto a terminal again. And that means that this is one of the most environmentally friendly way of transporting large volume over large distances. So it is the most environmentally friendly way of transporting. But it also represents between 2 and 3% of the total greenhouse gas emissions. So that means that shipping is also a part of the problem. And that means that we are part of the problem, but we're also the solution. That means that we believe that shipping, the importance of shipping will grow, but the ratio of between 2 to 3% will continue to grow as the demand for goods will continue to grow. And we also see that certain other industries are able to reduce CO2 much more. So the shipping footprint of CO2 will continue to grow because the global demand will grow. So sustainability is really high on the agenda, and now we see the Davos top meeting. Prior to the Davos top meeting, they always do a risk assessment, short and long-term risk assessments. And what we have seen is that for the last years, the risk assessments that's been done in advance of the Davos World Economic Forum top meeting has been on sustainability. It has been on climate. It has been on climate action failure and biodiversity. So these are, so what you see here is that the climate action failure, biodiversity loss, extreme weather, that is something that's extremely important for societies, and that is also something that we feel in Odfjell, that this is important for us and we want to do our part. So climate change is happening. It's happening today. A couple of years ago, more than 200 people died in Germany by flooding. The amount of insurance cost of wildfires is extreme now. So, and that will continue. So the cost of climate change is already happening. And every ton of CO2 matters. The downside of CO2 is that the CO2 doesn't disappear. If we stopped everything today, we stopped all the CO2 emissions today, the temperature will still increase. Because it takes more than up to 100 years before the emissions that we release today will be absorbed. And that means that today we are creating the weather and the climate for our next generation. So that is why it's extremely important that we are focusing on reducing CO2, and that's also the key drivers for a lot of the efforts, initiatives that we see, and it's really driving what we are thinking. And we also see that post-COVID, the challenges is really on climate, and I think this is a nice illustration of that. So that's why one of the key drivers that we see, that the EU have also set their targets. It's a lot of targets out there now, and it's difficult to understand where it comes from and where you're measuring from. So the EU, they want to reduce with 55% of greenhouse gas emission compared to 1990, and to be carbon neutral in 2050. And that drives regulation, and that regulation hits businesses. So the IMO is the only body that can regulate shipping. What coming out of the COP, what's stated by the EU, can partly regulate shipping, because shipping is an international industry. It can regulate our terminals that's located in EU, but the IMO is the only one that can regulate global shipping. And they've set a target of 40% intensity reduction, and also a 50% reduction in absolute. And this is not very ambitious numbers. And that means that the actual emissions will continue to grow as the fleet will grow going forward. So that's why we have set the target that we want to reduce the intensity with 50% and to be carbon neutral in 2050. And that means that we quite soon need to have a zero emission fuel concept available. And I think that that has also been on the agenda earlier today. We were talking about various different kind of fuel. And that's a major discussion. And I think it was very nicely presented by the previous speaker with regards of the circle of challenges. And that's what we are facing every day. So how are we doing on this? Following the COP top meeting, we still, with the existing pledges that are in place, we still need to reduce with 19 gigatons of CO2. So we are on a trajectory now with the current policy in place with a temperature increase of 2.7 degrees. And that is extremely important to understand, that we need to take really, really tough choices in the years to come, and that will affect our industry heavily. And that's what really the fundament for driving this. And as I trying to present here, with the existing policies in place, that is not enough in order to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. So is shipping doing any better? No, sadly not. As I mentioned, the IMO target is not very ambitious. So with the current trajectory, the current pledges in place, we will continue on a trajectory towards 4 degrees temperature increase from a shipping perspective. And that's why Odfjell, we have set a target of being zero in 2050. And that means that we need to bend this curve, and need to bend this curve hard. So that's why that is integrated into Odfjell's strategy. So these are the kind of 4 guiding principles, or a mission vision, and also with a sustainability element. It's a core pillar of our guiding principles going forward, that we need to do whatever we can in the way where we are running our business in order to achieve the sustainable development goals, where climate is an element of that. And that is built into also our long-term goals. As you will see, these are the long-term goals of Odfjell, where we have sustainability as a key element of that. And I also want to bring that up because we are talking about sustainability as a kind of a risk mitigating action all the time. We want to avoid that. We want to see that these are the challenges that we need to mitigate that going forward. But we also think that this is representing a lot of new opportunities for us. And I'd like to focus on that as well. So what we do is that we do a materiality assessment, and that materiality assessment states what is important for us and what is important for our stakeholders. This is available on our website and in our annual report, because it's probably difficult to see here. But what we do every day here is that we saying what is important for us from an ESG perspective, what's important for our stakeholders, and that gives us a map, and that leads up to the upper right corner. What is important for us, and that shows here that the carbon emissions is one of the key, together with safety, that will always probably be there, is one of our key drivers for the initiatives that we are doing going forward. So this is material for us. It is material for the decisions that we do, and it's material for the strategic priorities that we do in running our business. So that we also see that is an issue, and this is the global issue map presented by the Global Maritime Forum. What is kind of the major issue for ship owners today? And you will see here that decarbonization of shipping and new environmental regulations is on the top of the agenda. And that will hit not only shipping, but all the adjacent industries as well, because the focus on scope 3, which I come back to, will also drive this. So we are thinking of this as a risk perspective, that we need to mitigate the risks that I'm trying to present, but we also see that there's a great opportunity on the other side. So the energy, the transition to zero in shipping represents a cost of between $1.4 and $1.9 trillion. And you can say that is an enormous amount. It's going to be a major challenge. It's a major risk for our industry. But then again, those $1.4, $1.9 trillion, that will go somewhere, right? So there will be companies that can take benefits of this. There will be new opportunities for terminals, new for storage. There will be new fuels, new technology. So we think of this as a lot of opportunities as well, and coming a little bit back to that. So the major drivers for this is transitional risk. Of course, on the physical risk, that is what we see every day. And for our terminals, it's when you have increased numbers of hurricanes, that is clear. Those numbers are quite clear. There will be increased numbers of hurricanes, and that is important for us. And we need to prepare for that. So that's the mitigating actions on physical risks. But also the transitional risk. And these are all the new regulations going forward. And we need to prepare for that. But we also see that there is a tremendous amount of opportunities. And if we only focus on the downside, we will miss on the upside. And I think that is one of the important signals that I'm trying to share it with you today, that we also focusing on the opportunities that these challenges represent. So this is the task force for financial related climate disclosures framework. And we have put that into, this is the way we are thinking about it. This is the kind of high level risk assessments that we do. As an example, you will see that the policies and legal challenges, they represent a challenge, an issue for us going forward. We need to make sure that we are ahead of the curve on decarbonization and the regulations from the IMO, from the EU, but we also, on the other side, that we take the benefits of the upside. Now the ETS shipping will be included into the emission trading scheme from next year, and that means that it will be beneficial to be a transporter with lower CO2 footprint than your competitor. With the new regulations from the SEC on climate-related disclosures, it will be put a pressure on scope 3 reporting, and it will be beneficial for us of having less CO2 emissions than our competitors. And now that will start and get visual. We have seen it on containers and on the container market, where you have big brands like Microsoft, we have Apple. Everyone has stated that they don't want to transport their goods on ships that emit CO2 from 2040. And that's a driver for them. In our industry, we don't see that yet. I was on a stand 6 months ago, and I said it will probably take 9 months before we see that that will be a driver for our industry. And I think that we will stick to that, because I think that when we across the summer, people will really understand what ETS is all about and the requirements for Scope 3, and it will be a driver for the customers also to select a transportation provider with less CO2 footprint. And that's also increasing all the attention to it and also the requirements for new reporting. So that risk assessment that leads into a lot of the work that we do. We started doing that back in 2019, and it led into a fleet transition plan. And that means that we need to make sure that our fleet and our business is fit for purpose going forward. And what we realized that there are some vessels there that wouldn't probably not make it with regards to their capacity and capability to meet new requirements. So that has been since 2019 has been a key driver for development of our fleet transition plan. So we have a dedicated plan for all our vessels going forward, what can we do with all the vessels with retrofitting and energy efficiency going forward. And we also, parallel to that, looking into what's going to be our zero emission concept going forward. And it also goes into our strategic planning and strategic priorities. And also based on this work that we did, we also prepared a sustainable financing framework. And sustainable financing, that is also an opportunity. And we were the first I think we were the 5th company in the world and first company in our industry to do a sustainability-linked bond. So what we did is that we have set clear climate targets, and we linked those targets to the financing, and saying that if we do not achieve those targets, we'll be penalized under that framework. And what happened is that when we issued that bond, we got a substantial oversubscribed. It was a major interest. We saw interest from investors that had decided not to go into shipping anymore. But due to the link of sustainability, they found the sector still attractive, and they wanted to be a part of that. So I think that sustainable financing is another example of a good opportunity that comes out of being a high performer within sustainability. And that bond that we issued, that was also awarded by the Marine Money as Bond of the Year. So I think that represents a great opportunity going forward. And there's many routes to energy efficiency. We are thinking this in our fleet composition, the way we have put together our fleet, the way we have renewed our fleet with the new vessels coming in, with the old vessels that we have divested. We do a lot of technical upgrades and retrofits on our vessels. We also looking at all the operations. We're digging into how can we best optimize vessels, how we operate them, the routing, weather routing, optimization of speed in order to make our ships most efficient. And also have the digital journey, that we ensure that we have full access of data and are able to take the better and faster decisions based on data. So far we have been able to reduce our carbon footprint with more than 30% on intensity compared to our own back in 2008, which is the reference year for the IMO. So in 2008 we were already a high performer, and we have been able to reduce that with more than 30% on intensity. We have replaced a lot of vessels and been able to reduce the footprint of our business through, as I mentioned, real-time data, access to real-time data, optimal weather routing, use of digital twins in order to optimize our business going forward, and these small details like making sure that the hull and propeller is clean. That also adds a couple of % on fuel efficiency. And when you're crossing the Pacific over a 40-day journey, 2%, it's actually a lot of money saved. So since we set our climate targets, we continue with the same fleet. We are able to reduce that. So when we issued our climate targets in 2050, we have been able to have a continuous decline and really outperforming numbers on the carbon intensity for shipping. And also with regards to the IMO target, where the IMO has where if you're looking at the reference numbers of the IMO target, where they had a target of 40%, we see that our fleet is now 48% better than the IMO reference lines. So all our efforts have been doing quite well. There's a lot of new things coming up now. The EU regulations, the drivers, as I mentioned initially, in order to achieve those targets set by the EU, that will affect us. It will affect our business, both on shipping and also on terminals, and especially the emission trading scheme. That will so the Fit for 55 is the regulatory framework for implementing the actual changes in order to achieve that 55% reduction target. So the emission trading scheme is just a part of that, but I think that is an important new measure that will come into place. It's still not 100% clear how that will play out, but it will be an increased cost that we need to pass on to the customer. But it also means that it will be a driver for selecting a transportation provider with less emission, because that will be a less cost. So, and also, as I mentioned initially, the focus on Scope 3 is also important. So, as being a part of the supply chain, whether in the shipping or a terminal, you represents a part of the Scope 3 emissions for the customer. And that means that the emissions that we do, our direct emissions, will be their Scope 3 emissions. As I mentioned, the regulation now for climate disclosures will increase, and that means that the whole supply chain will be a part of the CO2 reporting for a major company, like an oil major, where they have set, some of them companies have set clear Scope 3 targets, and in order to achieve that, they need to work with that through the value chain as well. So that means that as a shipper, we need to, and shipping and storage, we also need to make sure that we are improving as much as possible. So that is important and one of the key things for us with regards to emission. The social agenda, we should not forget that when we're talking about sustainability. And I saw this model the other day where you have a kind of a carbon tunnel vision, where you only focus about carbon emissions. Sustainability is so much more than that. It's about the way we are handling people. It's about governance, and as I mentioned for the topic for this talk as well, on the ESG. And the social agenda is also extremely important. We have seen through the last years, we have seen a focus on the challenges for seafarers, the ability to rotate, the mental and physical health of people being sick and people being isolated and people being at home, and also the focus on racism and also on human rights. There are new regulations. Being a Norwegian company, there are new regulations in Norway in order for us to make sure that we are actually doing a human rights due diligence. So that will be driving for us. We will see that same regulations will probably come into the EU as well. So the focus on human rights impact will be certainly will be growing. And also diversity. In order to solve these problems that I've mentioned, in order to be ahead, in order to be modern, in order to attract talents, we need to access the 100% of the population, not only 50%. We are a male-dominated industry, and we need to make sure that we are able to have a diverse team, not only on gender, but as I say, it's a diversity of thought, and we think differently, and the benefits of a diverse team is really important, and we also believe that is have a lot of benefits, and that's why we're working with organizations also in order to increase at least the gender diversity for our business, and that's a long-term role. And we also set diversity targets for ourselves going forward. Digital transformation, as I mentioned, that is fundamental in order to achieve those changes that we are talking about. Everything moving from what we have done. We have not been able to do the fleet transition plan unless we have access to high quality data. So high quality data has been important for us. What we need to do now is that we need to liberate those data. They have to be taken away from the different silos where they are and have to be contextualized, and it has to be unlocked and create a lot of value. And I think that is a undercommunicated opportunity with regards to digitalization going forward. So I'll sum up with two strategies. On our shipping side, we are doing this basically in two routes. One is the fuel efficiency and fuel flexibility. So our next build that will solve the zero challenge will have to be a fuel flexible, zero capable vessel. Parallel to that, we need to work with energy efficiency, and that energy efficiency also has to be there on the new vessel as well, because New fuels will have to be more expensive, so energy efficiency is extremely important for us going forward. So the next vessel has to be very, very, very efficient. So, and on our terminals, we're looking at it from an environmental, social, and governance perspective. Starting with the social, safety will always be on the top of our agenda. Occupational safety is extremely important, but also health, diversity, as I mentioned. Governance is kind of a minimum standards, and the EU regulations has set a clear guidance for that through the minimum safeguards. And also, we have only seen 2 targets of the EU taxonomy now. That's the climate change mitigation. That means that the way we are using energy, and that will be focus for us, how we are using energy and energy development on our terminals. But also climate change adaptation. That means that the next time we are investing or building terminals, how do you adapt to a new world where climate has changed? And also, we will now see the implementation of the 4 next objectives in the EU taxonomy. That we're focusing on pollution, what we're doing on pollution, and biodiversity, water scarcity, so monitoring of water will be important for us as well. So there's a lot of new things that will come on, and this is nothing that will be just more added. And this will be required of reporting with the new Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive that will be implemented in the EU later. And that means that we need to have the data in order to report on this, and we need to have strategy in order to meet these requirements and targets. And this will also be pushed by finance, because if we are not performing, we will also struggle access capital. So that was kind of the picture that we are looking at, the drivers that we see on the way we are operating our terminals and thinking strategically about our terminals and our shipping going forward. So, thank you.
Many thanks.
So I'll be also on the panel, but
you're on the panel, but I see we have an eager question already. In the interest of time, I'll take one question, but there's a very insistent hand going up here.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, my question is on the 2050 net zero target that you guys set for yourselves. How do you expect to achieve that from a technological point of view on shipping? What fuels are you thinking of? Is that ammonia, methanol, and do you have a feel for timescale?
Yes. And it's a kind of a boring answer, because as I tried to present on the slide, that we need to be fuel flexible, because the majority of that decision is is outside our responsibility, because we look at things from a tank to wake perspective. So we can get the fuel on board, and so but to bet on whether that's going to be methanol or ammonia going forward, that is a major risk for us. So we want to make sure that we are as fuel flexible as possible. I believe that ammonia should, when you look at it from a technical perspective, ammonia is probably one with the highest energy density and less complex. So we believe that ammonia would be very, very important and probably the major fuel going forward, but not that we are betting everything on ammonia going forward. The major challenge, I think, and I think that's most under-communicated challenge of new fuels, is the access to green energy. Because one thing is that we can get that fuel on board, but if it has not been green produced, we are kind of back to the same problem. So the access to the green energy, in order to produce green fuel, I think that is really, really under-communicated, and is the major challenge. We want to be as flexible as possible. We believe that ammonia would be probably the solution for the deep sea, together with methanol. But there's all the complexity, and I don't have time to go into the complexity between those different fuels. The benefits of ammonia, it doesn't contain carbon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.